Welcome to Beans and Breakdowns, a podcast dedicated to bridging the gap between specialty coffee and the heavy music community. On this episode, I'm joined by Chris Aitkens, known as Spewer. So grab a fresh cup of coffee and wake the fuck up! What's going on, caffeinated crew? Today, I'm truly honored. I feel like, I know you've talked about it, being recognized, being a micro celebrity, but we are joined by a micro celebrity today. Chris, A.K.A. Spewer, if you're nasty. How are you doing?
I'm doing very good. I'm excited to be here.
I feel like this is much overdue. I know that you also mentioned that it's the timing is great as well. This is just good. Very happy that this is happening. I do feel like it is overdue, admittedly.
Hey, well, I mean, I just want to say congrats on the podcast so far. Like I was telling you before, I binged the crap out of the podcast, mostly listening to episodes of people I know. Mm-hmm. But I really enjoy it. I enjoy the conversations. I've learned a lot about coffee as well. So yeah, like I said, I'm very excited to be here.
We will talk about coffee. I watched a video of yours recently that did make me a little piece of my heart broke when you were making the botfly coffee. Because you just put a bunch of it into a grinder and then like poured it into the coffee maker, and I was like, oh, he didn't weigh it. It's just like little bits and pieces of my not elitism. It's just what I've been ingrained with. Mm-hmm. Pun intended. But I was very happy that you did have to buy a grinder for that.
Yes, and I tried to save some of that botfly coffee for today, but it was just like such a minuscule amount that when I ended up making the coffee, it just came out mostly water. So instead, I went out and bought this Montreal's roast from Café Celeste. It's apparently fair trade, which is pretty good. And so far it's good. I think I made it a bit too strong because I'm shaking a bit more than usual, but so far it's very good.
We are in the afternoon. So is this like a third cup territory for you?
Right now it's my second cup. I wanted to really wait until we were doing this to actually start drinking. So I kind of waited a bit before, but yeah, when it comes to coffee, it's really the thing I need first thing in the morning. Otherwise, I can't function correctly.
I'm there with you. It's part of this addiction I think we've all collectively put on ourselves. But yeah, a morning without coffee is a very difficult morning, I will admit. I'll tell you what I'm drinking. I also have a Montreal coffee that I picked up today. It's new for me because I haven't seen it until recently, but it's called Colorfull. This is their Melon Creamsicle, which is cool that it gives you like a name to pinpoint some flavors to. And it's got a bunch of like science shit on the back. I don't know if you're able to see that.
Oh.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
Tropical fruit, stone fruit. Interesting.
Yeah. So this is it's like a co-fermentation washed. I don't know what all of that necessarily means. But it's got some honeydew, melon, citrus, and white peach notes. So this is cool. I guess it's a new roaster from Montreal. I was working at the Canadian Roasting Society this morning and saw it and thought it looked very pretty. So I grabbed it because at the end of the day, branding is everything.
Yeah, it really is. I think most of the time it's based on packaging that I grab something. Not so much with specialty coffee, but say when it comes to like craft beer, if there's a devil on it or like a giant skull, and then I'm buying that craft beer.
Yeah. Like anything from Mutoid, I would say is pretty much a fair game. We're going to drink it. Do you like the Mesrum stuff?
I don't think I've tried that.
Oh, you got to go to Mesrem. I would say it's different now than it was when it opened, but it's very good.
Okay.
Like it's a cool spot. I'll say that.
Okay. I'll I'll check that out.
It's like far though. Like you gotta like bike there or take a car. You can't
Oh,
just
okay,
yeah,
okay.
it's like
Not accessible through public transit.
no, it's like by the canal. So you could do like a nice
Okay.
canal walk over there if you wanted to and stuff. But it's yeah, it's pretty cool. It's got like a huge terrace and they've got like beer slushies if you're into that kind of
Oh,
yeah. I don't know if you're into that. But it's
I'm willing to try anything.
oh well yeah, it's good. I mean I don't like the beer slushy, but I like the beers there. They're good.
Okay.
But we're not talking about beer. We're talking about coffee.
Yeah, this
And
ain't Vox and Hops.
it's straight up. And if it was, I would be so happy. Shout out Matt. What would you say your go-to coffee order is? You walk into a shop, what are you ordering?
I usually like to keep it simple. Maybe just a latte or even some drip coffee. I don't like to complicate my order because when it comes to coffee, I think taste is very secondary to me. What I need is just caffeine.
Okay.
First and foremost, I need something that'll like bring me back from the dead. Uh, so I don't even care if I'm drinking like the shittiest coffee in the world, as long as it'll wake me up, then I'm okay.
So you'll hit a double double.
I would, but not like maybe hold the sugar because I don't like my coffee sweet.
So just a double.
Yeah.
Is there like a shop that you prefer? Or you're just like, whatever, I'm just gonna get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think whatever's close to me. There was a place in NDG I used to go to a lot called Shaka, but right now it's closed down.
Damn.
It was up on Sherbrooke on Old Orchard, but I think that closed down like maybe 2-3 years ago. It's been a while since it's been closed down. And then there's not a lot of other places in terms of coffee, at least in my area. I'd have to walk like maybe 10 minutes at least to find a good place. And I haven't really sampled a lot of places.
I think milk is like in that NDG Westmount area. Milk is probably the only thing around there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and milk's good. But it's a little pricey. I would say it's pricey.
Okay.
And that's a lot for me. So somebody who works in coffee, but you're more of a beer guy, right? You like beer.
Yes, I do like beer. Maybe a bit too much. So I think when it comes to beer, I go for all the like the specialty stuff, like to try everything. Maybe that's my next hobby is doing the same thing with coffee, trying to get all these like specialty brands and try different beans from all over the world. But one hobby at a time, one interest at a time.
So you don't have that like I've been told it's an ADHD tendency. I have not been diagnosed or anything, but I have this tendency to rabbit hole. Like when I find something that I'm interested in, I will dive really deeply until I feel like I've gotten as far as I can get, and then I'll like find another thing. And do you have that issue?
I think so. I think when it comes to other things, such as movies, I collect a lot of VHS tapes, and now I'm at the point where I have stacks and stacks of tapes that I don't even want. And I have no idea how I actually acquired them or can't remember where I found them. And I don't know how to get rid of them. I don't know anybody else who is collecting VHS and wants, 3 copies of Lethal Weapon 2. But if you want, hit me up. And
That's so
I guess
specific.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of doing that too with vinyl and cassettes as well. I'm starting to collect a lot more of those now, but I'm not as intensely as some other vinyl heads out there.
Are you don't like hunt for like the specific like colorway of this vinyl or like you haven't gotten that deep?
Not yet. I don't think my wallet has allowed me to get that deep into it yet. Maybe once I actually get a full-time job, then I'll go crazy with the vinyl.
Right. So, I mean, speaking about full-time jobs, doing movie and show reviews and things is not your full-time job, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Putting so much effort into doing that, and like the knowledge, I feel like, and where you're able to pull from in terms of like having all of this like recollection and knowledge of different styles of music. What is your background in music? What were you listening to growing up as a kid? Like, what was the household like?
It's interesting because I come from a Christian home, so I think probably my earliest exposures to music were either at church or, I mean, my dad is like an ex-hippie, so he has like a lot of like music from that era, a lot of Bob Dylan, Beatles, what have you. But I don't think I really like sought out music until maybe I was maybe 12, until I started, playing video games and started to hear songs from, Tony Hawk, Pro Skater, and the SSX series. And they had like, that was like probably my first time actually hearing punk music is off those soundtracks. And that kind of planted the seed and eventually brought me to where I am here.
It's funny that you bring up the SSX series because I hear Tony Hawk a lot. Like I hear, and for me as well, Tony Hawk was like a big one. I still can, I think, sing track by track the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 soundtrack. But the SSX series, I feel like, is such a sleeper because it was only on GameCube, right?
I played it on PS2.
Oh, damn.
But yeah, they had some great songs, and I think that was like the first real video game I got into was SSX3, and had great songs on that. I discovered Yellowcard through that, and had like a brief obsession with Yellowcard. Chaos was on that record too, so yeah, I got a bit into like Canadian hip hop through that. What else was on that record? And then I think the one that came out after that had Billy Talent, had Iron Maiden on it. So that really opened up the scope as well.
Did Tricky come before or after SSX3?
I think Tricky is the second one.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. That was the one that I played like the most. And then SSX3 came out. That's probably why I was on PlayStation. Anyway, I'm getting I'm getting fixated on like console now. Yeah. I just remember playing Tricky so much, but I don't honestly remember the soundtrack that much from it. But I guess 3 was much more iconic. I can't believe Billy Talent was on it. I, as an American, had no idea who Billy Talent was until I moved to Montreal. Is that normal?
I mean, I'm sure it's normal. I think here people know about Billy Talent just because, they're Canadian. So right. All the radio stations are obligated to play them because, most mainstream radio stations probably have like 3 Canadian bands that they rotate from, Nickelback, Tragically Hip, Rush, maybe Billy Talent every once in a while.
Right.
But in terms of like other Canadian artists, they don't really care. But like they just like play those 4 artists just to like tick the box of like, yeah, we played CanCon. But I think like being an emo in like the early 2000s in Canada, you were like obligated to listen to Billy Talent. That was like required listening.
So was Billy Talent in like the same breath as say like a Silverstein, or was that very disconnected?
I think I was more into the Billy Talent camp than Silverstein. I think I only started really listening to Silverstein years later and never really grabbed on. But I also had a very short-lived emo phase.
Okay. It wasn't like a long stay. Like you wouldn't call yourself an elder emo, quote unquote.
No, no.
Okay.
The only thing that remains is the black clothing and the depression.
The slightly like mid-length hair. Even.
Yes.
The depression. Yeah, that's, I think, just a common phase in any alternative underground music. Maybe not hardcore as much, because I feel like we all have so much attention issues that it's too like fast paced for us to sit and think with our thoughts. But yeah, and like especially doom, I feel like there's so much depression and
Oh yeah,
atmospheric black metal, which I'm not sure if
definitely.
that's something that you're also into, but doing the Spewer thing, you kind of started it. It wasn't pre-pandemic. It's been post-pandemic, right?
Yeah, I started it in 2015, November of 2015, back when I was studying journalism at Concordia.
Right.
And I wanted to try out for the radio station there, CJLO. And I had originally applied in 2014, but didn't follow up at all about it. So then I finally reapplied in 2015. And the program director at the time, Andrew Wheeler, who's still at CJLO, still has a show called Grade A Explosives. He was very supportive of the idea of having a show that's both punk and metal, because there's, at least at that radio station, there was a real divide between people who were playing metal and people who were playing punk. And the first few episodes of Spewer weren't even about Montreal. I was just playing music that I wanted to play on the air. Mostly crusty grindcore stuff, but every now and then I would like throw in a Montreal band just because I was in the scene. I was familiar with these bands and they were just in my radar and I wanted to like promote them. And then eventually I wanted to like promote the shows that they were playing. And then it eventually just evolved from me just playing whatever I wanted on the air to me just playing specifically Montreal bands or bands that were playing in Montreal that week. And then that brings us to Spewer, to what it is now. So
where does the name come from?
The name comes from a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles toy. I was trying to find something that would like indicate sludgy, dirty music. So I was like kind of playing around with like swamp for a bit, but I felt like Spewer was a bit more appropriate just because it implies, you know, an urban area and stuff bubbling up from the underground. And, you know, plus it rhymes, which is perfect.
Yeah. Rolls off the tongue.
Yeah. The Francophones have a bit of a hard time pronouncing it, so I apologize. But
it comes with the territory, you know?
Yeah.
I have a hard time pronouncing things in French. So I'm not like you. I don't have the great bilingual abilities.
I mean, I still run into my a few things that are hard to pronounce. So you're getting like the take after like many other takes once you see it on a video or hear it on the radio.
Right.
You know, sometimes I have to say it a few times before I actually get the pronunciation right.
So you grew up like an Anglophone household?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, I went to French school, but yeah, it's one thing learning French in school and then speaking out in the streets here in Quebec, because the French that you learn in an English school is very different from the French that people are speaking with their friends. And sometimes it's a bit harder to pick up on.
Well, I've even heard like in some schools, like the French teachers don't even speak. Like there will be like Anglophone French teachers that aren't even exactly fluent. Like it's super strange.
Yeah, like they just know the basics. So they're like
collect a paycheck.
Yeah, exactly.
Not to say that teachers aren't important, but I always am so amazed at the thorough of watching a video and it's like this show that I would never ever expect or anybody has ever heard of, like this noise rock show with this band from like I don't know, like Uzbekistan, and it will be on Spewer. It's like, how do you even know that this has happened? And then you're like, if anything flew under my radar, and I'm like, what do you mean anything flew under the radar? Like, it's all here. This is crazy. Like, how much digging do you have to do?
It depends. I think it's a matter of following the right venues, because there's venues who regularly do punk, hardcore, metal stuff. So I always keep my eye open if they're like posting new events. Sometimes, I have to like go on websites or social media just to dig a bit deeper. Sometimes I know, there's other places that don't necessarily post a lot on social media. So I go to, say, askapunk.net, or I try to follow like the bookers
right
online to see if like they're posting posters at least. So yeah, it's different sources. You kind of always have to like keep track of everything that like comes up. I've started to do like this huge Google Doc of all these shows, and as soon as I see like somebody post a poster, I immediately stop what I'm doing and just like go into the Google Doc, add it.
And this is not your full-time job?
No, this is just a hobby that I've been doing for a bit more than 8 years now.
It's crazy. Like I don't know how, and I know that you're not in that for the money whatsoever, but like I feel like the service is so valuable that it's almost like something we should be just collectively giving everybody. If everybody were to give $1, like everybody just take $1 monthly and give it to you, then we would all just be better off still.
And that's why I started the Patreon account. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Just everybody give $1, join the Spewer Patreon, donate $1 a month, because you're using the service. Like I know that everybody's using the service. If you haven't gone to a show like in the past 6 months because you found it on Chris's channel, then I don't know. Like, I think you're lying. Like, because it's crazy. And it's like, I would understand because, I'm in the hardcore scene. I also keep track of a lot of metal and like punk rock stuff. I have friends that are like in street punk bands and stuff. And I even feel a little overwhelmed trying to keep up with just like those kind of generically genred shows. But there's even like some deep dive shit and like having to know, oh, this band is from this place and they have these, like it's just like, it kind of blows my mind sometimes where you'll just like drop a little nugget and I'm like, oh, that's so like helpful, but also I'm so surprised that like you would even know that. So I appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Doing God's work, right?
Yeah, doing Satan's work. I think even like post-pandemic, my tastes have also like broadened a lot more, because before I was just doing like punk and metal, but now I'm promoting, alt rock shows, dream pop shows, like power electronic shows, like noise shows. Yeah. There's just like so much going on. But I think even if you were to stick with just hardcore, you'd still be overwhelmed by the amount of shows that are happening in Montreal.
I mean, even just like checking the extensive website, like extensive enterprise, it's like, I don't even have enough money to pay for all of these shows. And then that's not even to mention like, what's the collective booking? What's Into the Ether got? What's Destiny doing with Be About It? And then that's not even to like talk about like good shows and other, mid-tier promote. So it is so much. And Montreal is really not that big of a city.
Yeah. And it's strange that I don't see anybody else in Toronto or Vancouver doing stuff like this, because I don't know, they're bigger cities. They have scenes too, somewhat maybe more so in Vancouver than in Toronto, because all the venues seem to be closing down in Toronto. Yeah. But Yeah, I think every scene should have their version of sewer spewer.
I agree.
I did see this very briefly when I was in Bolivia. Somebody was like doing like a weekly video of all shows happening throughout the entire country. So they would say, okay, well, in La Paz, we have like these events. And then, over in Santa Cruz, we have these events happening. So yeah, respect to that person. I can't forget her. I forget her name right now, but yeah, mad respect for her for representing the Bolivian scene.
The whole scene. She put the whole country scene on her back.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like it is interesting that other Canadian cities don't have it. Like especially Toronto. Toronto's always got something like almost every night of the week. But I think that because of the culture of Montreal, because of how like dedicated it is to arts, like publicly always, it's just like it really flourishes on doing like the original and always wanting to be like the first and the different. I honestly do feel like Sewer Spewer really does fit. Like that's such a Montreal thing to be. Is like we got to have somebody that's telling us all this shit because we're not gonna know. But I feel like I don't know. Toronto's got this other vibe. It's like very. I don't want to be offensive to any of my friends from Toronto. It's just very like businessy, like buttoned up.
Mm,
It doesn't feel as
yeah.
like comfy and like homely as like in Montreal when you go to a show or you go anywhere, you kind of feel like you're surrounded by like your people.
Mm-hmm.
But in Toronto, it does feel like every kind of little GTA neighborhood and suburb has its own vibe. So maybe somebody in Hamilton should start doing it and then see how it goes. You know what I mean?
Right. So just concentrate on shows happening in the GTA. I mean, I have a friend who's kind of doing that. Uh, Phil, who does Banecdotes.
Mm-hmm.
For a while, he used to do like a whole list of shows happening in the general Ontario area. I don't know if he's doing that as much now that he's moved to the East Coast. I think he's around Halifax right now. So I don't know if he's as involved with the Ontario scene, but I know that he's still doing Banecdotes.
Yeah.
Just he's still covering stuff that's coming out, but I think he's kind of broadened his horizons outside of Ontario right now.
They're doing like because I can't remember the co-host name. But and I apologize. But Phil
I can
was
try to look it up right now.
Yeah, Phil was at our show and I think he lives in Fredericton because he came to our Fredericton
Oh, okay,
show.
right.
And I don't even know if we met, but I was watching one of their videos. They had done a review on like I think Vanity or something from Bruiserweight, and he was talking about being at the show and stuff. And I was like, oh, I really wish he would have come up and introduced himself, and like we definitely could have lined something up as well. Like that would have been great. But I guess Phil, if you're listening, reach out.
We love you, Phil.
But it was yeah, I do appreciate what they're doing as well, but it feels like they concentrate more on like releases, which is also helpful.
Yeah.
And I know that you do the same thing. You kind of focus on like drops, and you do reviews as well of releases?
Not as much as I used to.
Mhm.
I've kind of, I mean, maybe at the end of the year where I'm doing my list of my favorite records of that year, I do like a little video and like say a little bit something about each release. But yeah, it's something I want to like constantly be aware of, constantly just always keep a lookout for new releases, new albums, especially those coming out of Montreal.
Yeah. So I feel like they go into more depth, but yours does like you have like a scroll through and be like, these are what were released in Montreal this month. And that's still helpful, but yeah, it's cool. People should do it. If anybody listening, if you don't have this in your scene, just do it. Like it's
Very simple.
I mean,
it's a lot of work, but I think anybody can do it.
I'm not going to be the one to tell, like, I don't want to be like, it's not that hard, because it is. It's very difficult. Like, I know that it's a lot of work, and I watch a lot of videos of yours, and I'm like, this is way more than I could ever try to do. But if you feel inclined, definitely start doing it. If you want to work on a Google sheet and just start doing it. Yeah, that's great. I know we talked a little bit about films earlier too. But I do love that you've branched out into films. The review of Straight Edge Kegger was especially
Yes.
fun. Which they sent you some shit too, didn't they?
Yeah, because that wasn't the first review I wrote for Straight Edge Kegger.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote one maybe a year before that, the one that appeared in Be About It. And I posted it, and the director reached out to me and just said like, "Hey, thanks a lot for writing this review. What's your address? I'm going to send you like some promotional stuff." So he sent me like a shirt, some stickers, pins.
Sick.
He sent me some posters that they used for their one location, because like a lot of the movie happens in a punk house. So he volunteered his own house to be the punk house. So he just decorated his entire apartment with punk posters and graffitied penises and everything like that. And then, yeah, so he sent me a few of the posters that were on his wall in the movie.
That's so cool. But I do I would love to see more of those for sure, especially like movies that have to do with like more so like the punk and hardcore things, which I know that you've done a few, like the 1980s punk. What is it? Punk exploitation. Yeah, that's such a
Yes.
hard word to say. But I was telling you that I did find a few recs from those, and like I have a list. Me and my wife have a list that we share of like movies we want to watch in the year, and I think at least 3 of them are on like Return of the Living Dead is especially one that
Mhm.
that we want to watch. So yeah, like I love the film reviews. Film has become very important over the pandemic because we could only watch films, and having somebody that's like, you should watch these if you like anything to do with punk or metal or hardcore or anything like that. So, but I feel like you're just stacking more work for yourself. It just feels like you're just adding more onto it. I know that you're interested in
A
it,
bit.
but at the end of the day,
Yeah, I do it out of love, but yeah, I just love horror movies. And I used to have a column where I talked about the correlation of punk and horror movies. I don't do it anymore, unfortunately, but I discovered a lot of cool movies through that. And even just like classic movies, how they've inspired punk, like say A Clockwork Orange. You have all those like clockwork punk bands now who dress up as droogs and sing in that like made up slang from A Clockwork Orange. So it's very interesting to see how both punk and horror can influence each other.
are you just talking about oi bands?
Yeah, like for the
No,
most
I'm
part,
just
they're
kidding.
oi bands. Yeah, but
I'm just
a
kidding.
very specific strain of oi
Yeah.
bands.
I was trying to make an oi joke, and I apologize to any of my skinhead friends. It's not, I love oi music, so don't come after me.
Yeah, watch your back.
I mean, if I'm going to be scared of anybody, it's going to be from angry skinheads. You're also in some bands.
Yes.
There's one that I was told to ask you about, The Lucky Few.
Oh no.
When you were before the glamorous times of being a vocalist.
Oh.
Were you a trumpet player in The Lucky Few, like a ska punk band?
Yes, I was a trumpet player. It was one of 3 ska bands that I was in. I had a big
Wow.
ska phase at a certain point. There was like a point in like the early 2010s where, Ska-core was king. Everybody loved Leftover Crack before, everybody realized that SZA was a piece of shit. But we also loved other bands like Against All Authority and Stupid Henchmen were great too. So yeah, the Lucky Few were with some friends of mine who I had met They were originally in a band called the Grandchildren, and they came from Lachute. And they would come play with my other band before I had the Lucky Few. I was in another band called Seized by Force, and we would play together. And then I think when they were forming the Lucky Few, they were saying, "Oh, well, we've seen you play the trumpet a few times. Do you want to join us?"
So,
and that's pretty much how it started.
I had a question submitted as well. A question from a listener. It's a personal friend. You probably know this person too.
Okay.
Is it a No Cash reference? The name of the band?
I think so. Yeah, because No Cash does have a song called "The Lucky Few," so that definitely.
Off of like their
I didn't come up with the name. Yeah,
I
didn't come up with the name, but yeah, that definitely tracks because we used to also cover No Cash.
Okay.
As well.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense then. No, Ryan from Ryan Reed was asking if that was a No Cash reference. He's like, especially him, he's got such a crazy depth of knowledge about like really underground shit in terms of like punk and hard. And then ska, he went through a big Ska-core phase as well, or like ska punk phase. So I'm like, you can have that because I don't have that amount of brain cells to capture all of that knowledge, him in his young mind. So shout out Ryan. There you go. There's your answer.
Yeah. I can't listen to ska anymore though. I think I've run my course with ska, and whenever I hear an upstroke, I'm just like, oh no, let's change the channel.
The farthest my listening goes is like early two-tone, like Specials, Madness, like okay. I can vibe with that really well because it's nice and dancey. Anything later, like ska punk, is not within my wheelhouse, which I did like Real Big Fish for a while. I think two-tone is still really good. It holds up and the message is always great. Anytime Rudy comes on, you got to shake your ass.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to pull a Nardwar on you. I just thought it'd be fun. Gutser.
Yes.
My friend and I, we were watching at the anniversary, and he looked over at me and said, "It's got heavy, heavy, low, low vibes." Are you familiar with this reference?
Heavy, heavy, low, low vibes.
Like the band Heavy, Heavy, Low, Low?
I don't think I've listened to Heavy, Heavy, Low, Low.
It's kind of specific, I think, maybe regionally, because he grew up in Florida and I was in Georgia, so we kind of had a similar regional scene. And so it was kind of like that mallcore, hot topic-y, like chaotic mixture of deathcore, metalcore, and punk kind of together.
Okay, interesting.
If that makes sense. There's like a bit of like what people would have called grindcore back then, but it wasn't truly grindcore. Which I kind of think live, it makes sense. It's very chaotic, very good. But I thought it was very fun, especially the mushroom eating contest. I don't know if anybody else has seen that happen.
I should have cooked those mushrooms, just eating them raw. I could see the people gagging as they were eating it. So I feel bad for them.
Raw mushrooms are good as long as they were rinsed. Did you rinse them?
I don't think I did.
Oh shit. But Spill Everything. Is that y'all's only like full length out?
Yes, we have a new record coming out hopefully by the end of the year. We're still waiting for it to get like properly mixed and mastered. We're getting some tracks back and giving feedback. Mm-hmm. So yeah, our next record will be called 9 Rips to Rule Them All. It'll be reference to Lord of the Rings because my bandmates are huge Tolkien heads, and I just kind of go along with it because it's because otherwise, it's we're going to be fighting forever over a song title or an album title, and I'll just let them have this one,
Well, so is Lysergic, is that how you pronounce it? Lysergic Philosopher? Yeah. Is that part of it? Is a single off of that, or is it just a standalone single?
Yeah, that will also be on the record.
So that explains like the wizard situation with like it looks like drugs. There's drugs involved and stuff.
Yeah, that song specifically is it's inspired by a bunch of movies, specifically Alejandro Jodorowsky's The Holy Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it is a weird fucking movie.
It's a lot.
That I made the mistake of watching for the first time on LSD. So it was a very interesting experience. But I've also thrown in like some other references to other movies such as Jacob's Ladder, Mandy, Altered States. So essentially just all about like psychedelic movies. And yeah, the themes that come up in those movies.
Right. What I always find interesting about the sound of Gutser is, first of all, I feel like you guys don't take anything seriously at all. Like
not really,
like not anything really at all. Which is fun because it truly feels like the music is fun and y'all are just really doing it because you enjoy it. But also the vocal style that you have is not something that you would think of would be like fronting a punk rock or like kind of punk themed band. Like the vocals are super kind of guttural, heavy, almost like something that I would feel like in metal. And I feel like that really does stand out like in the genre. I don't know if you have any kind of take on that.
Well, I'm very influenced by grindcore.
That makes sense. I see that.
A lot of death metal as well. And when we first were putting together Gutser, I really wanted to do crust punk, grindcore band. So yeah, it was just started off as the three of us, the bassist, drummer, and myself. And we were looking around for a guitarist, and we came across my friend Paul, who mostly comes from a pop punk ska background. So at first we were like, maybe this won't be a good mix, but he's just very good at writing music. And it's almost fun because, he doesn't have much of a reference to the metal world. So it's kind of funny to see, somebody coming from a pop punk background trying to write a metal riff, and it somehow works. So even though it's a bit more of like maybe punk instrumentally or punk attitude, I feel like we try to throw in as many metal references in there as well.
Now that I know, because I hadn't thought of it that way, like Paul is very much a punk like background person. Him trying to and thinking of a punk trying to write a metal riff, it makes total sense now. The sound of Gutser, that has definitely come all together full circle for me. Yeah, I really enjoyed playing with you guys whenever we did the anniversary, and the Wario outfit was also great. What I still think about this all the time is you had like a wireless mic that also had Bluetooth.
Yeah.
And you were trying to play samples off of your phone through the Bluetooth in the same channel as the microphone. And as a sound guy, I can only think about how difficult that was for like balancing the gain of a vocal with the gain of a sample playing back from a phone, which to me all together is really funny. I don't know if you had even thought about that.
Yeah, I think I wasn't really considering how difficult it would be for the sound person when I first figured that out, because I was just like, oh, I could just like play samples off my phone. That's that easy. So now whenever I do play samples, I have an iPad,
right,
that I just like put it through a DI, so the sound person can control that without having to like control my vocals at the same time. So hopefully that helps a bit more for the sound people out there.
I just remember it being like trying to hear the samples, but it sounds like it's being like held up to a microphone, like from the speaker. And I was like, this is adding to like the chaotic energy, which is just really what I'm here for. But I knew that the sound guy was like, why what is happening right now? That was very fun. All in all, great experience, 10 out of 10. I don't know if I've ever listened to Pyrocene Death Cult.
We don't have any music out yet. We recorded a demo back in March, so I think we need to like re-record a few more things, but hopefully it'll be out sometime this year. I can't really give you an exact date, but that band is very, very new as well. I only joined it in October, and I think they were like maybe playing music maybe 4 months or 6 months prior to that of me joining. So that one's fairly new. So yeah, don't feel bad about not hearing it yet.
I did snoop, like I was really trying to find music, and I was like, I don't know if there's any music out for this yet.
Yeah, the only thing that you can actually really listen to is a video of our first set, which was recorded by Greg of Mistwalker, Rat Piss, Distortion, MTL, Heavy NFLD. I'm trying to think of other things that he's involved with. Where Strides the Behemoth, Viridian Cult. I think that's it. But yeah, don't get mad at me, Greg, since I can't remember all of your 7 projects.
So what is the I don't like doing the 4 fans of, but what is the to be expected sound wise?
So we are a black metal band with a lot of ambient melodic parts, a lot of melancholy riffs as well. So I think when I joined the band, they said, well, we're mostly influenced by Death Heaven, specifically, what was that record called? Sunbather. And then they also mentioned Regana. And then I kind of brought like my own influences to it. Like I said, I really like crust punk. So I like a lot of neo crust bands that have like these more instrumental melodic parts to them. So I would say Fall of Ephrafa is a big influence for me. I'm sure there's some other influences in there too. My bandmates also really like listening to Liturgy, and maybe there's some more underground black metal stuff that Ashley is listening to that I'm not exactly privy to. But yeah, everybody kind of brings their own thing to it.
That's cool. I'm always a little sketched out by black metal bands just in Quebec. And we have reasons for reasons. But to know that there's like I do enjoy Mistwalker a lot. My old band played a show with them one time, and I was blown away by, Greg's ability to play drums and sing like really fast, really, really good. So definitely enjoy like people that I know that are playing black metal and that I'm able to like check out. I like seeing it and hearing it. And like I said, my wife is a very big black metal fan. So I'm excited to hear that there's going to be some kind of loosely saying this term, but hipster black gaze inspired black metal. Yeah. You all know, the hardcore kids were obsessed with Sunbather. So that's going to be fun to hear. I'm very excited.
Yeah. But yeah, I do agree that when it comes to finding black metal bands, especially in Quebec, you don't know if you're like listening to a bunch of Nazis or anything like that. It's always a struggle. And I think as a band, we've agreed to only play with people who are outright anti-fascist. We don't want to keep it. We don't want to go with anybody who's neutral or ambiguous. So far, we've only been playing with punk bands because that's the only way we can guarantee that, like, they're anti-fascist.
Oh, the punk Nazis. Yeah. Well, I mean, we joke, but
it exists. But
yeah, I know the Nazi punks fuck off. Like, that obviously that was, they were around at that time. I think Montreal were very blessed in a lot of ways because a lot of the kind of Nazi influenced bands were chased off. It feels like from what I've heard, um, like years ago, especially like in the skinhead community, they've talked a lot about, the Rash and Sharps kind of ganging up and pushing out everybody. So that's a blessing, especially like in Canada. Sometimes it can be very, very difficult to tell. Like you have to do your due diligence and check those the subreddits.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, very excited to hear that. Excited for some new Gutser stuff. Are you guys going to continue to be the house band for Turbo House or?
I mean, we love playing Turbo House. I think we've kind of collectively agreed that we need to, expand our horizons, that we don't need to constantly be playing at Turbo House. We've only played at Turbo House once this year, but we've only played 3 shows this year as well.
Okay.
So I think we would want to play other places also outside of Montreal. We've only played like maybe a few out of town shows. So I think that's what we would like to do, but we're also getting very picky with shows that we take on now, especially now that we're 10 years old. I feel like we can be a bit more picky about what we choose to play. I'm still like debating in my head, like if once we do a record release, are we going to do it at Turbo? If we could like maybe do it somewhere else, or is like Sergio going to get mad?
Is it
that we're, cheating on him?
Do you think Sergio would get mad? Do you think he truly would? Is it is it all in jest?
I don't know, because at the same time, he also acts like he fucking hates Gutser, and he hates the kind of people that we bring to a show. There's like this ongoing joke that, our fans will puke in their sinks because it has happened at one show in the past. And I think somebody did puke last show that we had at Turbo House too. Completely missed the toilet.
Awesome.
But yeah, I guess maybe they're tired of us or our fans puking everywhere. I mean, I puked on Turbo House's floor as well, so I'm not exempt of that as well. So maybe there's some other venue out there that we should be puking all over.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe like SOT. Do it at Soterani and just puke everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I can never tell if Sergio is joking or not. So we could all just be in the dark about this. Maybe he does love you guys. Maybe he does.
Maybe. I mean, he still says hi to us. I mean, I think that's what Sergio's way of showing love is by just making fun of you and poking at you and yelling at you.
Just if Sergio remembers you as a person, then it means that he likes you. That's like, I think even if it's negative. Were you doing karaoke for a time as well?
I mean, I always like try to seek out karaoke for a while. So I go to Turbo House. I go to
I didn't know if you were running it at all.
Oh, no. I'm not running karaoke. No.
I thought you were running it one day. I was there after, was it a Botfly show I was at? There was a show that I was at.
Was it?
And there was one time that you were definitely there. And then a bunch of like Turbo House regulars, and Tony kept telling me that I needed to, Matt Savage kept yelling at me to sing a song.
Okay, I vaguely remember this. I think I was just hogging the karaoke. I wasn't actually running it because I remember singing like maybe 3 songs.
Mm-hmm. Because Tony ended up singing like Korn or some shit or Limp Bizkit. But Matt Savage ended up leaving before I could sing. So it was all wasted anyway. I don't know. Matt Savage is an insane person.
Yes, he is.
But I love him. But yeah, like I said, I love seeing Gutser. And I think that you guys are just very fun to watch and be a part of like the show. But also as soon as I can get to a Pyrocene Death Cult show, I'm gonna be excited.
Hell
I
yeah.
need to see some black metal soon. It was like 2 years ago that I saw Death Heaven, and I think that's the last black metal show I saw. So black metal is great if it's good. Check the subreddit. What do you have aside from the recordings and mixing in Limbo? What do you have coming up?
Well, right now we've kind of like taken a break from shows. We don't have anything planned right now. With Pyrocene, we're bringing in a new bassist, so we didn't want to book any shows until we're comfortable as a band again. With Gutser, we're slowly starting to write the next record because this always happens when we record an album and we're still waiting for it to come out. We record or write the next one. So I think all of the riffs are written. Mm-hmm. They're all up in Paul's head, and it's just a matter of teaching it to the rest of the band. And then I have to come up with lyrics for, I think we have 10 songs now that are potentially going to be on the next record, but we'll see. But yeah, so far, I think the biggest thing to look forward to is just that album coming out.
Hell yeah. Well, that'll be exciting. And I'm sure that the show, when y'all do it at Turbo House, will be great. I'm just kidding, but maybe. I just like it because it's close to my house. So
yeah,
I can just walk over, have some beers, walk home. No harm done. Well, Chris, thank you so much for hanging out today. It's been very fun.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I have one last question for you. I'm sure you know what it is, but what's your favorite city for beans and breakdowns?
So I have listened to like episodes of your show before, and I feel like it's a cop out most of the time to say Montreal, just because people weren't prepared for this question. I think I'm still going to say for my favorite place, it's Montreal, just because it's like a place I know through and through. But there are a few other places I wanted to shout out in terms of beans and breakdowns. In terms of beans, some very memorable coffees I've had. One of them was in New Orleans. I think it was at a place called Café du Monde in the French Quarter, right next to the water. In New Orleans, they make their coffee there with chicory root. And yeah, so that's a very memorable coffee. And I remember just being there in the atmosphere, having a beignet with my coffee, and it was just perfect.
It's a great spot.
Yeah. So I would love to go to New Orleans again and check out more of the city. I was mostly just in the French Quarter, mostly in the tourist area, but I would love to explore more of New Orleans next time I go there. Another place I want to shout out for coffee is Bolivia. That's where my mother's from. So I visit there every now and then. I was last there in 2022. And coffee is just more in the culture there. So I was having maybe 3 or 4 cups in a day because, you go to visit relatives, you're obviously going to have a cup of coffee. There, they have this designated siesta time during the day, around 2 or 3, where everybody just goes home and takes a nap and then has their cup of coffee and then goes back to work. So I wish that was a bit more normalized here, where everybody has their designated nap time halfway through their workday. Because, I always find myself crashing halfway through the day. And sometimes I just need to power nap and then have a huge cup of coffee and then get back to work. Yeah. But I mean, since it's South America, coffee is just tastes great down there. Even the Nescafe just hits differently down there.
True.
So, and I was living at my uncle's place, and he's very big in coffee. So he was grinding stuff all the time and French pressing stuff all the time. And yeah, so it's, so Bolivia is very memorable for coffee. But Bolivia was also very memorable in terms of breakdowns and riffs because I got to go see a punk show or metal show when I was down there. So there's a few Bolivian metal bands that I want to shout out. Tourbillon, who are thrash metal. Bloody Company, they're also thrash metal too. And La Cucarachota.
Whoa.
Cucarachota. Okay, they are a hardcore punk band. So that's a bit more up your alley.
Yeah.
And another place I want to shout out for breakdowns is Melbourne, Australia. I got to check that place out in 2017, 2018. Going down there was perfect because I got to check out one of my favorite Melbourne bands, King Parrot. They are like a grind, blackened thrash band. So I was very stoked on going to see them play their hometown. And opening up the show was a really dope band called Pagan, who I don't think they're around anymore, unfortunately, but you should go check them out. They have really cool music. And then I think the week after, I checked out two festivals at the same time. There's like a punk festival happening on one block. Then the block over, there was like a sludge metal festival happening. So I was just running back and forth between those festivals, which was a great way to discover bands. Mm-hmm. And I know most people know Melbourne and Australia for their garage punk scene because bands like, Amyl and the Sniffers and the Chats are really blowing up there. But they also have like a very decent sludge metal scene there. So I want to give a shout out to Religious Observance. They're fucking heavy sludge metal band. And I also want to give a shout out to Headlopper, who are more noise grind. Mm-hmm. And yeah, those were some of the memorable bands I saw in Melbourne, Australia. So shout out to them. But I still think my favorite place is Montreal.
Montreal is the greatest city. And I keep telling people it's the greatest city in North America. It's great. I love it. But yeah, shout out King Parrot. I have literally, it's on my list to reach out and try to get somebody from King Parrot on the podcast.
Oh yeah.
Cause the guys in Bonginator really like them as well. So
that makes sense. Yeah. if you get the chance to talk to, I think it's their bass player. I think his name is called Mr. Slats Every Day. He's just such a character. He has I think he started trying to do a web series called Metal Detective.
Okay.
Or something like that, where it's just like these funny scenarios where I can't even remember, but a bassist is missing, so he needs to go find the bassist, or this band is missing their tone or something like that.
That's hilarious. This band is missing their tone. That's a crazy video idea. That's so funny. Yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, hopefully it works out. Cause that's like a recent discovery for me. But they're a cool band. And, yeah, I'm happy that you shouted out some Bolivian bands as well. It seems like South America has such a crazy thrash crossover scene as well. I don't know what the deal is, because there's another band from Colombia that's gotten really big recently. They have a 3-word name. They had a video of them playing. It was like a music video they made of them playing in a grocery store, a convenience store.
Oh yeah.
But I can't remember what it's called. My friend Juan would know. Anyway, I'll try to put it in the intro or outro if I can remember.
Yeah, I'm just looking through lists, but I don't see any 3-word bands here.
It's they had a Ninja Turtles font from one of their videos.
Okay.
I think that would narrow it down. I can't remember. It was big for a few months, about a year ago.
Okay.
Anyway, Chris, thank you so much for hanging out before we get on this.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm sure I'll be seeing you hopefully at a show soon or something like that. But thanks for everything that you do. Thanks for Spewer. And like I said, we'll be keeping track of those projects.
Hell yeah. And yeah, I'll definitely I'll definitely bump into you at a show sometime, and then we can,
hell yeah,
chat about whatever you want.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beans and Breakdowns. I want to say a huge thanks to Chris for hanging out on the podcast. If you don't already, make sure to go follow Spewer on Instagram. He's going to be posting all of the upcoming shows, album reviews, movie reviews, anything that we talked about in the episode, quality content. So go and give that a follow. Also, make sure to check out his bands Gutser and Pyrocene Death Cult. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. You can find out more information about the podcast by following us on Instagram at Beans and Breakdowns or on the web at beansandbreakdowns.com. Until next week, be sure to stay caffeinated and wake the fuck up.